We're back. Back in action.
Back in action.
And with a lot of great things going on.
Oh my goodness.
And we're always looking at opportunities and how to capitalize on opportunities, right?
Correct.
And so why don't you share with us the idea of what we were discussing, which was capitalizing on an opportunity, how to take, advantage, credit, and you end up moving forward when you're working for a company or on your own.
Right.
Can you share with us that story?
Yeah. Well, in this particular case, there are two people that we know. We know a few others, okay, but these two came up with individually and separate from each other tremendous ideas, okay, that would definitely benefit the companies that they were working for. And these were very big companies. And, they shared their idea with the company out of the goodness of their heart. And the company is, in one particular company, they're benefiting hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in the other gentleman's idea, the company is benefiting in the millions. In the millions.
Yeah.
And
they didn't get any credit.
They didn't get any
Not
credit.
necessarily a raise. They didn't, it was kind of just like, hey, I'm an employee of the company. I'll help out the company.
Right. And to me, it's amazing. I'm built a little bit different. And I've had personal conversations with both of these folks, okay? They're good friends of mine, of ours, okay? And there's actually no regret in having shared those ideas with the company. They think it's just a part of their job, to improve the company, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Okay? I'm built a little bit differently. I'm built a little bit more like the Cheetos, the hot Cheetos guy.
Yeah.
Where you know that story very well.
Yeah.
When you share that.
Well, both these individuals that we're referring to, and I'll share the hot Cheetos, but both these individuals, it had to do with they didn't want more responsibility or a different type of position in the company. They liked the position they were in, and it seemed like, at least from my perspective in listening, that they just thought, hey, let me give this idea to the company and they can run with it. I'm not interested in moving up to a certain position of whether it's a manager or higher up and have more responsibility. They didn't want that. And so I think that's why they made those moves along with other things. It's probably very complicated, But
yeah, it can be as easy as just put it out.
But the Hot Cheetos story is a gentleman by the name of Ricardo. Or actually, let me look it up here. Hot Cheetos. Montanez. What was his name? Richard Montanez is his name. He's still alive. He's known for having claimed to have invented Flaming Hot Cheetos. Now, it's funny because I put this up here, and it's something comes up here in LA Times and says that he actually did not invent Flaming Hot Cheetos from the LA Times. You guys look into it. He's been claiming it for a long time. It says here that he didn't actually invent them.
Okay, but he went from being a janitor to being, I think he's a VP of the company. He's definitely a very important person within the company.
That's the story. And so,
from cleaning floors to, meteoric rise.
We'll link it in the description. But basically, it's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I hope it's true. Where he was a janitor. He had this idea to improve the Cheetos for Frito-Lay, I think in Rancho Cucamonga. And, we actually have a friend that I know a couple of people that have worked and work at Frito-Lay, and maybe we can
double check with them
the story. He was a janitor. He had that idea to make Flaming Hot Cheetos, and apparently he pitched it to the board, but he said, I want a piece of the action. That's the story, how the story goes. Um, However, we have a little bit of a different belief, and maybe you do, and versus I do. But I think that if you bring an idea to a company, um, why not? If you're gonna generate hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to the company, why not say, "Hey, I'd like a piece of it"? You
I
know,
would.
why not?
Why not? Look,
You got nothing to lose.
exactly. Businesses were built on ideas. In order for a big business, medium-sized business, or even a small business to exist, somebody had to come up with the idea and develop the idea and execute on that idea. So why not? You know,
Yeah.
I can understand some people don't want the extra burden of more responsibilities. Okay?
Yeah.
And if you don't have that kind of maybe entrepreneurial fiber within you, okay, that will have the potential of stopping some people. Okay? Um, However, if the idea works and takes off, you could enjoy part of those,
Yeah.
uh, you know, profits
Basically,
and revenues
you
and
want
benefit.
equity. You want
Yeah,
like a piece of the action.
yeah.
Equity. See, there's a lot of stories like The Founder, that movie of Ray Kroc,
Uh huh.
where he was a shrewd businessman, tough guy, and basically he was, I I'm trying to think what idea in particular, but uh, he took the idea of these two people of McDonald's, right, the
Mm-hmm.
two brothers,
Right.
and then he took it to the world, basically, or he completely changed it. But unfortunately, the originators of the idea, and I know it's different, but the originators didn't end up in a good spot, you know.
Yeah, I know of the story. I know some of it, quite a bit of it actually, but not enough to comment on it. But you know, I'll tell you this story. My uncle used to tell me this story. Okay, real quick. Uh, in Cuba, there was a talc company called Johnson and Johnson. Everybody knows it. It's here. It's huge. It just, you know, grew. It took a subsidiary to Cuba, and there was a guy uh, that apparently my uncle knew, and he says, "Hey, I have an idea where Johnson and Johnson can sell a lot more talc here in Cuba than they actually do." And there was a friend of his that said, "Okay, well, why don't you tell me about it?" And he says, "No, I'm not going to tell you about it." So this guy ended up figuring out who the regional vice president was in his province of Cuba, and he went up and talked to them and says, "Look, if you give me a contract, I just want, I think he said 5% of the increase in revenues, okay, once we implement this idea." And the guy said, "You're crazy, this and that." "Well, I got this." And it took him a year or longer to sit with the proper people and sit with the board and all of that stuff. And they finally agreed. They thought it was a crazy idea. He never shared the idea, but they said, "Okay, well, if it increases the revenue, you've got nothing to lose. What's your idea?" And they proposed a contract. They signed a contract that if the revenues increased, he was going to get 5% of the increase of the revenues that could be attributed to this idea. And you know what the idea was?
Hmm.
Make the holes on the structure of the talc bigger. The holes were very, very little
On the cap.
on the caps. The holes were very little, and so when you went like this and put on a baby or put it on you or whatever, not enough was coming out. When they made the holes double the size that they were normally in, a bunch of it was coming out. Everybody was using more, so they had to buy more. Okay, maybe even some of it was wasted, but they had to go and buy more.
Yeah.
And when they bought more, the revenues went up. And my uncle used to tell me, this is a true story, of
Wow.
Johnson and Johnson. So even a little simple thing like that, like increasing the size of the holes
Yeah, I
of the
think
top.
that's amazing, and I think that's with a lot of companies like
Well, he became
the
very wealthy.
yeah. Oh, okay. So he was able
He
to
capitalized
capitalize
on
on
it. He
an
became
idea.
very wealthy. He bought a ranch with I don't know how many heads of cattle, 300 or something. That's how the story goes.
Yeah.
But that's a very simple, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the best ideas, ironically, are the simplest ones. Sometimes you say, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was thinking of like the Coke can where they widen the hole where you drink from.
Oh,
And same thing, if it's bigger, I guess you drink it faster or whatever. Or at least that's the thought behind it. But from the company's corporate perspective, I can see how they would say, well, no, you're working for us. We're paying you. Any ideas that you have are ours.
well, no, no. It depends how you. Communication is an art. It depends how you bring forward your idea and who you share it with. You don't want to share your idea, but the ability to project an increase in revenue or so forth. And if it's so easy, then how come they didn't come up with it? If
Not that it's easy, but because
you're working for the company,
you're working for them when the idea came about.
right? Yeah. Well, I don't think that way. And
No.
in the case of the Hot Cheetos guy, I've read about it, and it seems like the CEO of the company at that time was a very down to earth, very genuine multi-zillionaire. Okay, he had shared because I've read about the fact that this gentleman Richard
Mm-hmm.
Montanez,
Yeah.
that he felt that it was actually a family
Yeah,
event.
the
that
CEO came out and said something like, we listen to every employee here, and if you have something that we can improve on or whatever, reach out to us. We'll listen to you. And that apparently Richard Montanez heard that and said, okay.
And he took it to heart.
And he called the secretary of the CEO. That's the way the story goes.
And also the plant manager that was above him got upset with him.
Right.
He says, what are you doing calling the secretary of the CEO? Well, I've got an idea. Yeah, but you got to tell me, you can't go over me. There's always politics.
Oh, yeah. In everything, right?
In everything.
I mean, that's not really, there's no way to avoid that, I think.
No.
Anytime there's money involved, power involved, you
Yeah.
have politics.
Yeah, there's no way to avoid it. You got middle management, upper management,
Yeah.
and then nobody wants to be overstepped, and you have to be very careful when you do indeed do it. The 48 laws of power that we are going through together
Yeah.
and making podcasts, they are very clear in some of that stuff. You have to be very, very, very careful how you take these steps. There
Yeah.
is one of the laws of the 48 powers that says, be careful. We haven't come to that one yet, but it says, be careful who you potentially make an enemy of. Because there are some people that will dedicate the rest of their lives to take you down.
Wow.
It's an incredible thing. And Robert Greene is an excellent writer, and I have a great deal of respect for him. When I read that many years ago, I could not believe, how clear it was once I read it. Because at that time I was still in the corporate structure. And I could see that there was someone that was almost their entire goal on a daily basis was to take somebody else down. And then that precludes you from prospering in every other aspect of your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you do something like that? You're focused like that. So, yeah. And it was interesting, his story is very interesting, Richard's, because he had to go back and he had to try it on his own. He was willing to do a lot of things that our two friends were not willing to do.
Right.
I give him a ton of credit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember a friend of the family told me very clearly one time, and I've shared with you, but he got a huge promotion at a company in a large corporation. And I said, congratulations, it's a great thing, this and that, and you're making more money and all these opportunities. And then he says, yeah, but it comes at a cost. And so I thought that was interesting because for him, it was very clear. you know, my weekends are on call now. I if something goes wrong, I need to go in. I'm pretty much 24/7 now. So yes, all these great things, but this is what it comes with. And sometimes we don't talk about the cost, and if you have a one thing that is Robert Greene talks about is to try and make yourself uh, irreplaceable. Uh, is that I don't know if that's the word that he uses, indispensable,
Okay.
because if you start giving out all your ideas and everything, one is it could be good because the company's moving forward. But if you bring an idea that replaces you, then you're without a job now.
Right, right. Well, that happened to you when you were in the corporate world. You want to share a little bit without names or anything like that?
Yeah,
You
no,
had an idea and somebody.
yeah, it wasn't an idea to replace me, but it was an idea to create a system that was a lot more efficient.
Uh-huh.
And I shared it, and I kind of had invested the time and energy and everything to create this system,
Right.
which was using technology to capture data and then put it in a nice spreadsheet. And so all of a sudden that got out, and then everybody's using that same format that I had,
That you kind of created.
yeah. And I was like, and I didn't get the credit for it. And it was just kind of like, this is the way we're going to do things now. But so it taught me.
So how did that feel?
It wasn't a good feeling because it was kind of just like it was taken from me, the process
Right.
that I had come up with. It's not necessarily anything I could have patented or anything like that. It's like there are some things that once the information's out there, anyone can do it.
Right.
And so that was the danger of putting this in place, is that anyone could do it.
But it was 10 times more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, because
And you found out in a meeting, right?
yeah, it was a meeting, and
It was a meeting that they
and
were proposing your idea.
it was a
and you
meeting,
go,
and it's like, this is now the way we're going to be implementing this process. And I was like, oh wow, that's the one that I came up with. But it wasn't like, thanks to Mike, or it wasn't it was just like, this is what it is. It's just
This is
taken.
that we're gonna do.
It was just taken.
Yeah, this is the way we're gonna do business moving forward.
Yeah. I know I'm being very vague with it, but
No, you gotta be, because you don't want
Well.
to name. Yeah, yeah.
the point is that if you have an idea, you got to be careful to protect it. And if you do want to capitalize on it, this wasn't one that I could like capitalize on or anything, but you got to be careful with who you share it with, and it could be taken from you. And then so if you invent something that can replace you, you got to find other skills that you bring to the table, because if not, they'll just get rid of you. Because at the end of the day, I think from a corporate level, yeah, they talk about culture and taking care of your people and all that, but at the end of the day, it's numbers. It comes down to numbers for the most part. And that's why a lot of people speak badly about corporations, which there's good and bad, like anything, I think. But at the end of the day, it's like, are you making money for the company or not? And if you're not, eventually they're going to get rid of you, is what I think. Now, some people in the corporate structure play these games, and they get really good and rubbing shoulders or whatever with people in power, and they're able to stay in top positions, where sometimes I'd be like, what are they
What are they doing?
what are they bringing to the table?
Right, right.
But I know we're getting sidetracked, but I do think that, like you said, we need new ideas,
All
new
the time.
companies. It's a good thing overall. It's just being aware. How can you capitalize on it? And maybe it's, like you said, not just throwing your idea out. Maybe it's figuring out, hey, if I bring something that I think is revolutionary for the company, I want to participate. So how would that look like? And then go from there, right? I
Right.
mean, that's just
And in one of these two instances, um, years later, the gentleman that came up with the idea approached one of the VPs and made a comment about it.
yeah.
And he said, and the VP said, "Yeah, I'm surprised that you didn't ask for, a cut or a percentage in return.
Anything in return.
We would have given it to you."
That's what they said.
So, um, you know, what do you do? It depends. I know that the guy from Hot Cheetos went through a lot of grief.
Well,
A lot of grief. But look where he's sitting now. And not just now, he's been sitting there for many, many, many years. Now,
Yeah.
I know the beginning was rough, and it entails a tremendous amount of learning, new knowledge, of course, because he was, he was a maintenance guy. And what does a maintenance guy know about potentially? Okay, I understand that he didn't have access to a lot of studies, or he wasn't privy to going to school too much, but you know what? He had an idea, and he wanted to exploit it
Yeah.
and get something out of his idea. So he went through the sacrifice that it entails to develop that, and he went through a lot.
yeah.
Not only from his manager saying, "What are you doing going above me?" There was a point in time when he was fearful of getting fired, and that was
Sure.
the only job his family had.
Yeah.
And so he was I believe he was the only breadwinner at that point. So there was a lot at risk, for him, even at that level, which, okay, he was generating, I don't know how much money a week as a maintenance person.
Yeah, but he was able to do it. I think of like Marcus Lamoni, the prophet,
Yeah.
where he has some cool, where he goes to these businesses and he says, anything that comes in over, once we change these systems, anything that you make over what you're making now, I would share 50% in, or something like that. But he's the one bringing in the new ideas, the new systems, cleaning things up. I think even investing money in it.
Correct. And creating new processes. Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool. That's a way that you can do it, right? Marcus Lamoni, has, with that show at least, was doing that.
Right.
And it was really neat,
It was cool. Yeah. Yeah. So, if you have an idea, don't give up on it. Maybe it does take, but see, we're going back a lot of years. Nowadays, I think that young people are very much in tune with the internet and obtaining information. Information is at the tip of your fingerprints. So you're able to do a lot of research just from a laptop at home. And so you can prepare yourself. It's just, you gotta want it. You gotta want to do it.
Yeah.
And this guy Richard, he went through a lot, as I read some of the story, but he was steadfast there, and his wife helped him, and they were doing samples and put them in plastics, and they
Yeah.
would tear. And
It's a cool story. That's
Yeah.
why when I just read it right now, that
I don't know about that.
somebody had reached out to me and said, hey, it may not be true.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
a while
man.
back. And then when I looked it up right now, we'll link everything in the description.
Okay.
But I hope it's true. It's
I want it to be true.
Yeah.
Because it's the typical story of the underdog.
yeah,
Comes from the bottom up, and where else in this world can you have that kind of opportunity but for in the United States of America?
yeah,
You can't have it where I'm coming from. You can't have it in many other parts of the world,
yeah,
but here, and Patrick Bet-David, to his credit, he says that a lot. He's a huge proponent of capitalism. I know capitalism is not perfect. I know it has a ton of flaws. But hey, a lot of people say, look, I had nothing, and now I have something. Could I have done this in any other part of the world? Maybe, but not likely. In the United States of America, in the US of A, is where you can have an idea and grow it to God, take it to the stratosphere,
Yeah.
you know? And that's how companies begin with ideas, you know? There's all kinds of stuff. And being creative is a big, big deal.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I was talking to one of my grandkids, and he's getting into the notion of what money is, and because he wants to buy a toy, and he's saving money to buy that toy, but he doesn't have enough money for the toy. So then I said, well, if you read a book, you know, I'll chip in. Well, then how much are you going to chip in? Well, what kind of book are you going to read? Are you going to read a book that has 3 words in one page, or are you going to read a book that has 100 words in one page? And he said, oh, okay, well, read a book for me, and let's come on an agreement on what kind of a book, and if it presents a challenge to you, I'll give you $20 when you're done with the book, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So he's getting into the knowledge of what it takes. So to, Patrick's credit, he always says, you have to grow. It's a period of development. And the man that started, his company is not the same man that's running the company 20 years later.
Right.
Because even as good as your idea is, you have to grow. You have to study. You have to bring value to the table. You have to develop your skills. You have to learn new skills.
Yeah.
But only in America. I don't know any other place.
Yeah, I mean, well, I haven't lived long periods of time in other places, so, but I can speak that here, you see it, people work and are able to build something, and it takes a long time sometimes,
Yeah.
But many times they're able to make it. And other times you have businesses that times change and the idea no longer is valid, and they have to evolve. Yeah.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, they have to evolve.
Yeah, I knew a guy that made a lot of money from owning telephone.
Yeah.
And you put your quarters.
Payphones.
Payphones, and payphones are no longer. He would buy a route. I remember him spending $200,000 on a payphones route, and he did exceedingly well.
Yeah.
And then he saw the writing on the wall when we started getting these little, what do you call them, flip phones?
Yeah.
And he said, uh-oh, this is a problem for my business. And like that, things develop. Look at Blockbuster. Same thing.
Yeah.
They didn't pull the trigger early enough when Netflix came along.
Yep.
Right? And it continues now with artificial intelligence.
Poof.
I mean, there's a guy, I was reading something the other day recently that this guy's saying artificial intelligence is taking over the real estate market. And I'm trying to think, how does artificial intelligence take over the real estate market? Because look at all we did today we have a property and it has a code violation. We had to meet with the city people. We had to inspect it. I mean, how does artificial intelligence deal with that? Well, maybe that is more of an area of an expertise, but this guy was saying they're making the calls, the routine calls, setting appointments, this and that. And
with like the fake with the voice that sounds like a real person. Like sometimes sometimes you're getting a call, or you call a company and you think you're speaking to somebody and it's a AI.
It's
Remember,
amazing.
we've heard stuff like that.
It's amazing.
Oh yeah. I mean, but it's out there, so we have to evolve and we have to keep
adjust,
finding ways to provide value, because if you're a caller, if you're a cold caller and that's what you do, depends how good you are and everything, but they could be coming after your job.
And the engineering on the robots and their movements has come along like at the speed of light developed, because I saw one on Facebook and he is lifting boxes and it's a robot and he is extremely flexible and very, very strong. So where a guy would need a forklift or something like that, this robot can, I mean, it's incredible. And the movements are very smooth as compared to before where they were awkward and
Yeah.
they wouldn't fall down, but they weren't smooth and I mean, it's
I
unbelievable.
think, is it Amazon that has like warehouses that are
Robotic, yes.
run by robots?
They do. And apparently it's very efficient. And they're pushing it because they're saying, well, look, I don't have to pay vacations. I don't have to pay sick days. I don't have to pay for workers' comp. Nobody's going to call in with an injury. And so it is a problem
Yeah.
because we have a lot of people that are employed today that if we don't get additional skills, potentially they'll be unemployed
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a problem.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yep. So we
So-
got to just again keep evolving and looking to provide as much value as possible. So
Right, right.
And if you have an idea, take advantage, pitch it, and get a piece of the action.
Be careful who you tell. Don't just relinquish your idea.
Yeah.
Get on the internet, figure out if something can be patent or copywritten or something of this nature. You know, you got to do a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
But most important, keep the idea to yourself until you're pretty sure that you're sitting in front of the right person or persons. In the case of the talk example, the guy actually got a contract before he released it.
Yeah.
And he actually, apparently, from what I was told, became very wealthy.
Yeah, because anyone could just take the idea and run. So
And
you
run.
got to be careful.
Right.
Cool.
Like they did with you.
We'll wrap it up there.
All right.
Thank you.